Okay, today we're going to go through the property tour. And I know what you're already thinking. What do you mean the property tour? This is at the beginning of your listing presentation. As soon as you get to that front door and having a structure to control the meeting to get the best outcome in that listing presentation. I need to make this clear, guys. You might think that this is a waste of your time, but this is where most of the business is ultimately won. Hopefully it's helpful. Thanks for joining us on Rethink Real Estate. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. So I wanted to continue the listing presentation practical episodes. It's one of the things that I think at the moment is something that we all have an opportunity to refine a little bit more. But that said, is that it's something that most people have really enjoyed and have actually requested is that we stay on the listing presentation train and dive into hyper detail. So one of the hyper detailed points that I'm going to go in today is actually going to be how to do the property tour. I know that this sounds a little bit cliche, sounds a little bit funny. You've probably already tuned out, but I'm imploring you to stay here because this right here will give you the credibility and it will give you the rapport that is needed in order to actually get the listing. I think that that's one of the things that I've been able to do and develop within my career of real estate is how to build rapport the quickest. Now, there's a couple of building blocks in all of this that I want to go back and talk about a couple of previous episodes that we've discussed already on the podcast. And one of them is the phone calls that you get when you get an inbound phone call or when you're making outbound phone calls, okay? And then you ask them to call them back and then you give them a call back when they're interested in selling their home and you ask them for a virtual tour of the property. Now, for anybody that wants context to that is that that episode is how to set up your listing presentation. It's also labeled getting priced before you go, setting up your listing presentation. Go back and have a listen to that episode if you haven't. Listen to the context of the phone calls that I'm talking about that set up the appointment appropriately. And in that first phone call back to the client, I asked the question, can you give me a virtual tour of the property? Most people don't understand the benefit to this until they do it for the first time and they get to the property tour. When I ask them for a virtual tour of the property, I ask them for great detail. So give you an example again is that Mr. and Mrs. Seller or John, I'm on the phone to John the seller. Okay, John, do you mind giving me a virtual tour of the property, focusing on things like why you bought the property and maybe some of the improvements that you've made since owning the property itself? Now, when I say virtual tour, I'd love you to start from the outside, the street appeal, and let's walk all the way through. Now, most of the time, a seller has a problem like getting a little detailed with this. They'll probably go, well, what do you mean? Like it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom? No. So from the main street, would you say it's got good street appeal? Well, yeah, I think it's got a great street appeal. Great. What style is it? Is it a colonial? Is it a contemporary home? What are we talking here? Oh, well, it's colonial. Okay, great. What type of front yard size do you have? Well, it's a really big front yard. It's one of the reasons we bought it. We loved it. It gives us privacy. Okay, great. Now, where's the driveway? Is the driveway right or left-hand side? Is it a garage, part of the main structure? Give me an idea of what we're talking here. Well, it's a part of the main structure. It's on the left-hand side. Great. Excellent. Now, is there a front porch on the property at all? No, not really. Okay, great. Is it single, double door, single door? Okay, excellent. Now, John, I know that this is a little bit arduous at the moment, but the reason I'm asking all of these questions, I'm taking vivid notes so that when I'm comparing your property to other properties locally that have sold, I can have better context to that because at the end of the day, I've never seen your home. I've never been into your home. I may have probably driven past it a few times, is undoubtedly, okay? But that said, I want to know the details here. So when I open the front door, what am I immediately met with? And we go through all of this different stuff, guys. So when I walk into the front door, okay, I've got a little foyer. We've got a foyer area. Okay, great. Is it hardwood, tile, carpet? What are we talking here? Okay, it's carpet. Okay, what type of carpet? Okay, is it new carpet? Is it something that you've done? What remodels have been done? What's your next room that we would walk into? Natural progression of the flow of the home would be the family room. Okay, in the family room, great carpet, hardwood. What type of flooring have we got? Is there okay? Yep. Okay, excellent. What you've just had it painted? Wonderful. Okay, all of this stuff is really, really important. So why I'm taking all of these notes down. This is one of the first things, having an understanding of the way that you're going to enter that appointment, the way that you're going to enter that property, and how you are going to, from the outset, control that meeting is probably one of the most important things that I can give you here today. It's so important. I had a listing presentation one time. Actually, it was with a gentleman by the name of Evan Basilic. Okay. He was out of our Irvine office. I was doing auction presentations. It was a property in Corona Del Mar. It was probably about a $20 million property. What happened was, okay, is that the door flung open, right? We knocked on the door. We were there for an appointment. Door flung open. The seller was on the phone and he sort of done the old, yeah, come in, no problem, and sort of walked away on the phone, kept talking. I've said to Evan, just stay here, mate. And he's like, what do you mean? Why are we just staying here? He's asked us to come in. I'm like, no, just stay here. Anyway, the sellers kept walking down. He's turned around and he's still on the phone and he goes, well, come in, guys. I'm like, no, you're on the phone. We'll wait outside. No problem at all. We don't want to interrupt. No, come in. No, we're fine. Thank you so much. Just finish your call. We're good. Jim, I'm going to have to call you back, or whatever the guy's name. I'm going to have to call you back. Anyway, walked up. He's like, guys, come on in. I'm like, oh, no, we just didn't want to be rude. Would you like our shoes off? I had to go back to the way that I run the presentation. Otherwise, I was going to be in there, sitting there at the table like I don't even know a good metaphor at the moment that I can come up with. Everything that's coming into my head is probably a bit inappropriate. We're just sitting there like looking at him stupidly. He's in full control. Yes, he'll probably apologize. He seemed like a nice enough guy, but it doesn't matter. You're not in control of the appointment. So again, he's said, hey, I'm going to call you back. He's come back to us. Then I'm in the flow. I'm controlling him. Would you like our shoes off? No, you're fine. Come on in. Okay, great. Hey, look, the way that we like to operate. So now I've got the flow. So let me give you an example, guys, of how I always had this structured approach to the property tour and making sure that I was positioning myself for the listing presentation in the area that I wanted it to be. Too often, okay, I have seen agents, or I've walked in as a third party. I might have been late to an appointment, or I might have been involved in an appointment where, it just wasn't set up correctly. And we've ended up in the lounge room, or we've ended up in these areas where it's really awkward to actually have any control over the meeting or show the seller anything. Have you ever been an agent that's on the living room floor on their knees in their socks, sort of scooting over to the seller trying to show them something, or the seller grabs something from you and then they go over 20 feet away from you or 15 feet away from you and they sit back in their lounge chair and they're looking at that versus being engaged with you. The reality is I wanted to be one of two places, either dining room where there's chairs and I've got a table in front of me, or kitchen counter. If there's no dining room or tables or whatever it may be, I'm standing around the kitchen counter and I have control at that point. I've got a piece of paper in front of me with my listing presentation. When I go through and I show you the setting, the agenda element, it'll make a little bit more sense because I have a blank piece of paper in front of me. I've got a few things that I show them throughout the journey of it. I make sure they can't pick them up and take them away. I've got to be in control of it. Otherwise, you lose control of the entire meeting. You need to keep that attention there. So, for example, my strategy was, is that walking up to the door, I would typically knock on the door. They open the door. Hi there, my name's Ben Brady. Wonderful to meet you. You must be John, and this must be Carol. Hi, Carol. Hi, John. Nice to meet you. Would you like my shoes off? Oh, no, shoes are fine, Ben. Come on in. Hey, you were right. Definitely probably one of the best looking homes on the street. Remember, in the notes in that little mock conversation I had just before, made a quick comment. Oh, we've probably got one of the best looking homes on the street, right? You're definitely right. Definitely one of the best looking homes on the street. And you're walking, obviously, as you're walking in the door. John, Carol, if it's okay with you, I'd love to set my stuff down on a kitchen table, dining table. I just need a table in front of me when I do the presentation to show you some certain things. And then I'd love to take a tour around the property and compare it to the notes that I took when we were on the phone together. Is that okay with you? So again, guys, hopefully this is all matching up here. Because one of the easiest elements moving forward is that once you've got your stuff in the area that you would ultimately want to do things, okay? So you've gone to the dining table. Let's say that it doesn't suit for whatever reason. You go, guys, do you have another position or another table that we can sit at where I can sit down, show you stuff? I also have to do a little bit of note taking and I want to set an agenda as well. Is there somewhere that's more suitable for that? Okay, because it might be outside on the, the patio. The other thing that I've typically made sure that when it comes down to setting the appointment, that there's not many distractions, but you can get overly detailed at that point. Hey, I don't want your kids home. We don't want pets in the area. I've had people say to before is like, I won't do a presentation when the kids are at home. There's certain things that you're not going to be able to control. There's a few uncontrollable elements here, but you've got to try and get 80% of it right. And part of that is where I was doing the presentation. You will never find me on that awkward position where I'm trying to sit forward on a couch because it's uncomfortable sitting back and you look lazy and you're slouched and you're in your suit and your jacket and all this stupid stuff. It was always at the dining table, at the kitchen counter, at the breakfast table, at the outdoor patio table, whatever it may be, where there was something in front of me where I could actually take control of the things that I'm showing them and also my note taking. But then I'd love to look around the home and compare it to some notes. Now, as I've gone through and asked them to do the virtual tour, this is the gold in building rapport, is that they will go into details. Well, we actually put the patio on. Great. So when you get out there, hey guys, I've got to ask you a quick question here. What did it look like before you did the patio? It would have been horrific. Like, well, it was pretty bad, and we dive in and we talk about that. That is the rapport building. Like they feel like the home already. These are the curtains that you made, Carol. These are phenomenal. John told me that you made all the curtains. They are beautifully done, hand stitched. Now, again, if they're not beautifully done, you probably want to say congratulations on doing them or something like that. I don't know. Okay. Or either way, you hear the word opportunity that used to come out of my mouth. This looks like a great opportunity. That means it's a big pile of, we won't say excrement, but either way is that this will give you the ultimate chance where the property tour is the real connecting point in all of this. Have you ever done a property tour before when you're looking around the home and you felt weird because you're not asking enough questions? But either way, when I'm on the phone to them in that first degree doing the virtual tour of the property, okay, is that I'm asking them, are the bedrooms good size? So that when I walk into one of the bedrooms, hey, this is a great size bedroom. But what it also does, where I need to really come into this, tells me what level they are on when it comes to their perception of their asset. I'll give you an example of this. Okay, one of the things that I experienced one time with a client is that I got to the front door and he had told me that they have a beautiful open plan home. I'm standing at the front door and it doesn't look very open from the front door. Okay, I've obviously done the would you like my shoes off? Where can I set this down? I'd love a dining room table or kitchen table, something along those lines where I can show you a few things and I can take down some notes. Okay, great. We go there. And then I'm walking through to go to the dining room table and then to go back to the front door to start at the beginning and go all the way through. And he's described the property as an open plan floor plan. It is not an open plan floor plan. It is all sectioned out. It is awful if you want an open plan property. That automatically gave me an understanding that this gentleman was not going to be overly realistic when it came to what his property is. So, as I'm going through, is that I could see some real defects in the perspective of that I've got a new kitchen. The kitchen hadn't been remodeled for 20 years. They remodeled it 20 years ago. That's not new. So all of this was just adding up to the way and the characteristic of the way I was going to have to approach that individual listing presentation. To get that level of insight was really important, but also what it allowed me to do also, it didn't allow me to walk in and make any negative comments around things because I'd already gotten the understanding of it. I remember I was on the back porch with my dad one time when we were talking about selling his house. It was actually just before I came to the US. And he's like, it's good to be in an elevated position. And I'm thinking to myself, we're not in an elevated position. You can't even see over the fence, right? The reality is that what somebody thinks, getting that before you go is so important to the way that you're not offending them or you're focusing on the parts where they are really enjoying those elements of their home. I think that's really important in the rapport building. You get to talk about it a lot further. Now, as you're going through the property, there's very important parts. I don't like the head pop in where you open up a door to a room and you just do a pop in. I always used to open the cupboards and people get a little bit nervous about that. They'd be like, oh, it's messy. Hey, look, I'd just like to see the depth of all of the storage. I think that's important. Just remember where I came from, guys. I came from an industry where I'm 18 years of age and somebody's biggest asset competing against people that are double my age. I had to use pure enthusiasm. Sometimes it would be down to the factor that I would actually, just talk them into submission. okay, in order to make sure that I got the listing. I wasn't leaving until I got the business. But that said, it was just through the little individual details. I always open a door, go into the room. I go to the far corner of the room. I look at all the corners of the room. I always open that cupboard as well. It was a routine that I would do all the way through. One of the other things that I would do if I was out the back of the property, I would always walk to the back boundary and touch the back boundary. That was really one of my strong suits in this. I remember I was at a property in Fallbrook. It was with an agent where it was a little bit more of a rural property. When I say rural, just on a little bit of acreage. Now, here I am in a suit. I've got my black polished shoes on. It's not exactly I'm dressed to go backpacking, okay? But that said, I still walked. And I've still went to touch the back boundary, back fence, okay? And as I'm walking with the seller, the agent hung back and said, oh, look, I'm good. You guys go. I can see it from here. As I'm walking, the agent goes, well, lucky you're here because I wouldn't give her the business if she didn't want to see the back part of the property. So there's all these different things and experiences that I've had where a seller is incredibly house proud. And if they're not, you're forcing them into being house proud. Okay, you're forcing them into the individual details of all of this, and if you've been into enough properties, you call out the different things. Hey, was this here before? It like was there a wall there? Like you can see these different things. Make sure that you open up about those comments if they haven't opened up with them. And it's really important that you get them to buy into that virtual tour of the property on that phone call beforehand, because this allows you to then sit down with the seller at that dining room, kitchen table, not in the lounge room, not in those awkward positions, and really take the listing presentation over. Okay, that control from the beginning here, guys. As we conclude this part of this individual session of the podcast, I want to make it clear what the point of all of this is. It's about taking control. I really do believe that where people fail is, let's say you walk into the door and then someone goes, okay, so do you want to look at the home first? If that question comes out of a seller's mouth, you have failed by not taking control. I want to make that unequivocally clear. At the front door, if you walk in, you've introduced yourself and they go, all right, well, do you want to look at the house first or do you want to do the presentation? If that is the comment that comes out of the seller's mouths, you have failed. Have a set process, have a rhythm that you get into, so that therefore once you get to sit down in the place, the ideal place to do that presentation, you are focused, you know what you need to do. And I would say that already from the lead up process, the questions that you've asked, everything along those lines before you've gotten to that front door, you're in with a better chance than most. This is the icing on the cake. The listing presentation is just the cherry on top. It really, if you can do all of these individual things, by the time you get the listing presentation, if you don't completely make a buffoon of yourself, you've probably already secured that business through the effort that you've gone through. Hopefully this has not been a waste of an episode for you, because this is something that is very literal. It makes a lot of common sense, but I want to make sure that you're focusing on this part of your presentation, because I believe it's where I've won most of my business. I believe it's where I've got the most comfortable, where they've opened up the most in the actual presentation themselves. Okay, or the presentation itself. Hopefully it's helped. Thanks for joining us on Rethink Real Estate. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.